Sentinel returns is a very dark and atmospheric puzzle game that released for the PlayStation in 1998 and on Windows PC. It is a sequel to the original game dating way back to the mid-80s, which was simply called The Sentinel. The game was published by Psygnosis and features a total of well over 600 levels, and also includes both single and multiplayer modes. So looking back at even some of the gameplay mechanics and features, players control Sentinels that are used to interact with the game environment, and the objective is to absorb the main Sentinel by creating stacks of boulders to gain height. Players must also utilise the environment in order to avoid the Sentinel's line of sight to prevent energy absorption from their Sentinels. But compared to the original game, this sequel has a much darker and more surreal aesthetic compared to its predecessor, with environments that feature contrasting colours, elements with like white trees and pulsating boulders. But it also offers a very unique blend of strategy and puzzle solving that on the surface is very engaging if you know what you're doing. But realistically, for casual players, it will be a bit of a struggle to get used to, because the dynamics in the control systems do require a multitude of different systems or peripherals to be added, with the likes of not only the controller but the mouse add-on as well, which can also make it a bit of a troublesome and even cumbersome or janky kind of experience, because sometimes you can be limited or locked out of certain elements or even features if you don't have the right peripherals in place, making the game more difficult to play and in almost some cases unplayable for many, because the truth is not everybody would have had access to all of those peripherals. Anyone that would have been into these type of games may have only just had a controller to hand, so being limited or being restricted to also having an additional peripheral to get the most out of the game would have been a daunting thing, and it would have put a lot of people off buying the original game. But even upon the gameplay elements, I am going to say from my own personal experience that this game simply would not be for everybody. If you do genuinely like puzzle games, yeah, you can definitely have a go of this, and if you're familiar with the series and other games kind of like it, which there are a few but they are rare to find, then yeah, you'll get something out of it. And it is tricky to figure out what to do as well. Not everything is as apparent in the beginning as you'd first think. There's a lot of trial and error involved here, and it can be quite tricky to master and almost in a lot of ways very frustrating, that after a few moments of playtime you'll be just left stumped as to what to do, and you're likely not to go back at it. And I'd imagine that that was the case back then, where people just simply got fed up with the experience and just decided to go to play something else. But again, people that understand puzzle games and the unique quirkiness behind them, especially with titles like this, will get some value from the experience, but not everybody will. But I do remember going back in the day, this game was seriously promoted, like a couple of other games on the PlayStation, Forsaken being one of them, even though that was a completely different experience. But there would be advertisements for this game across literally every magazine for months after the game was released, so obviously it was popular enough for it to warrant so many advertisements being seen in magazines and articles. Really, Sony and the developers themselves were really trying to push this type of game towards consumers. I do remember quite well going into game stores, especially if I would travel up to Dublin for the day, where you'd be usually saving up your pocket money to go and buy some games, and you would literally have an entire shelf just on its own with this game literally covering that shelf space. So obviously even the store owners were really trying to push this game out to the masses. Now whether or not they sold enough copies to make it worthwhile, that I can't say, but I'd imagine they did with all the promotional material behind it. Now like I said, it's not for everybody, but it definitely will appeal to a certain dynamic of players. For those that like really quirky and rare and just obscure strategy games, this here game really fits that bill 100%. But it's just hard to know what to make of it, especially if you're a casual player. And even for the likes of myself, I would have been more used to fast-paced, more action-orientated games. A lot of times when I did come across these slow-paced games, I didn't really know what to do, nor did I have the patience for them. And this one here for me would have been, you could say, now this is just my experience, one of the worst examples, because you really would not have known what to do, and you just would have got fed up with it and just left it alone. Now it's not to say that I'm hating on the game, because I do know the appeal of it, and I do understand the dynamics that makes it popular, which obviously it was popular enough to be advertised the way that it was. But just casual players coming into this for the first time, even now, will struggle to understand what's going on here. But for those that can understand it and can get something out of it, well then, you'll know the risk and reward elements that come with it. But it's an obscure game and it's an interesting one, even though right, it won't be for everybody's taste like I said, but it's still curious enough to figure out what's next or why people got involved with it in the first place. Which is why I'd love to hear your comments about this. Were you involved in these very obscure puzzle and strategy games that appeared on the PlayStation? Because there are a lot of them, to be fair, and this being one of the most out there and weirdest ones that were on the console. So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around even more of these obscure and weird strategy and puzzle games that did release on the console, then you can check out this next video right here. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.